Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. I hope you are joining us from our show that we had just about 2 minutes ago with Jason Samnell. But tonight we're going to be talking about the potential of wintry weather. I know it's been the buzz over the past couple of days, and we're starting to hone in on the idea of exactly what may take place in each part of the Carolinas. So we have a great lineup tonight. We have Brad Panovich from NBC Charlotte. We have Dave Williams, who is chief meteorologist down in Charleston, South Carolina. Jason Boyer, chief meteorologist in Asheville, North Carolina. And is that all we have right now? Yes, I don't see Jim or Gary on yet. So Jim Gandy from Columbia and Gary Stevenson from Raleigh will join us at some point, as well as Tim Buckley. So I think we have all of the areas here in North and South Carolina covered. So I know everyone's on a time schedule. So I'm going to toss it over to Ricky. He is prepared like a good person. And he's going to keep our conversation flowing. I do want to say, if you are watching tonight and you have any questions specific for your area that you live in, send them to us via Twitter, Carolina WX Group. We'll make sure those get answered, or else you can post them on our Facebook page as well, and we'll make sure those are answered. So, Ricky, I'm going to hand it off to you, my friend.
All righty. Thank you, Scotty. Yeah, we're talking about the potential for snow tonight in the Carolinas, which for most of the people in the Carolinas is going to be coming as we go into Friday and Saturday. Before that, let's get this out of the way. You may be hearing about some snow in Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, my neck of the woods, and perhaps even portions of the Tennessee and North Carolina mountains. That's going to come from a whole different system that's going to be riding in as we go into tomorrow night. But that kind of sets the stage for the snow potential from an area of low pressure that's going to, we believe, form as we go into the day Friday and Saturday. Let's kind of get a brief little overview of what everything is going on, what's coming together, and what kind of makes this storm what it is. Brad, we'll bring you in here, and maybe you can pull up some graphics to show us kind of where the systems are now and what the reason is we're going to get this coastal low that we think is going to form.
All right, let me see if I can actually share my screen here. I'm going to pull up GR Earth here. And the system that Ricky was talking about for tonight is actually this little wave of snow, which I don't know, Ricky, if you noticed some of these totals coming out of Nebraska have been pretty impressive. I saw some 8-9-inch totals in western Nebraska. This is more of the leading edge of the polar air, and you can see that because north of that boundary, and it's not a true boundary, it's more of a polar front moving south, and it's got a little jet streak with it and a little vorticity that's kicking off some really dry, powdery snow. So I think that's why you're seeing these overproduced numbers here, is because you're probably getting 15, 16, 18 to 1 liquid to snowfall ratios, as that's the leading edge of the really true Arctic air. But the system that we're talking about for Friday night into Saturday is still actually on the west coast. It's part of a big upper low, and I'm going to kind of turn off some of my stuff here so you guys can see this a little better. I'm going to turn on the model data. Oh, those arrows are horrible. Turn those arrows off. I don't know why I've got arrows on there. And Let me turn off the winds. There we go. So what you're looking at here is the 500 millibar heights as well as the vorticity. You can see that really strong area of vorticity coming through northern California into southern parts of Oregon, and that's the thing that's going to kick off a little disturbance that's going to come down and initiate some Gulf low development, which around here, this is kind of why we get our snowstorms. We look for down in the Gulf of Mexico to see these things develop, and then we're going to see the good old Miller A, excuse me, where the low is going to jump to the coast and develop. And what I mean by that is low pressure is going to shift from the Gulf Coast, and the energy transfer to the Carolina coast is going to form a coastal low off of South and North Carolina. And the biggest question mark in this kind of setup is, when does that energy transfer happen? How fast does it happen? And where does the track of the low? So as hard as forecasting weather is in general, when you throw those type of variables on top of it, it makes it extremely difficult to forecast. And really, to me, that's the one thing I've really had the only low confidence part of my forecast. I think we're going to get something. I just think it's a matter of how much based on the track and the strength of that low right now.
And that's one of the things that's been varying on some of the models over the past couple of days. You know, we've seen the European model, the GFS model almost flip-flop over the past couple of days in their solutions. Some phasing that energy, some not phasing the two jet streams. But let's talk a little bit about why that uncertainty is there, and some of the potential impacts. Now, I want to bring in Jason to talk a little bit about that, if you would. Let's discuss why we have such high levels of uncertainty. And really, can that be expected almost for a majority of the snowstorms we get here in the Southeast just because of how our setups usually occur?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Rick. You're certainly going to see more of a swing in patterns, if you will, and a lot of this flip-flopping when you get these systems that are so far out in terms of time too. We finally have the vorticity that we're looking for, that upper level disturbance coming into the Pacific Northwest. So the models are finally getting a better grasp on it. But seeing the flip-flops of the models between the Euro and then the GFS, that really concerns us as meteorologists, and we typically like to see at least 2 or 3 good solid runs of consistency. And finally, the GFS seemed to be onto that track when it started lowering its totals coming off of the mega storm that everybody thought was going to happen, but it's really not everybody thought, but everybody was latching onto on social media. But that's not going to happen. So what we like to see is consistency, and finally the GFS has come around to be more consistent in its model runs, and the European as well. So that even this far out, more than 40 hours out from happening, that we're going to see the shift at some point, some kind of shift in the track. A subtle shift can make a huge difference when it comes to any type of snow accumulation, especially when you start interacting with the coast and, of course, mountains in Western North Carolina. We start to see a big change from what may become a northwest flow behind the system, but initially coming from the south and west, that's our good news here in the Carolinas when we get those southwesterly lows coming through the Gulf of Mexico.
And the interesting thing about this system is that parts of the mountains of North Carolina may not get as much snow as some of our coastal areas. And for that, I want to bring Gary Stevens in, who's in the Raleigh market, who may be in the sweet spot or closer to the sweet spot than the majority of us here in Western North Carolina and even Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. Gary, what's some of your thoughts in terms of some of the prime locations for snowfall with this system? Gary, I'm not sure we're getting audio through from you, by the way. Best laid plans of meteorologists. There we go. Let's try that. Oh gosh, that's worse. Gary has turned into Minnie Mouse and is joining us.
Sounds like the chipmunks are coming through.
Okay, well, we'll work on that maybe in the background and see if we can get Scotty perhaps to help Gary out with that audio and see if we can get him on here in just a little bit. But let's segue a little bit.
Where's the closed caption?
I know. The FCC is going to find us here in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some of these snow maps that have been coming out. And Dave, let's bring you in here because down in the Charleston, Myrtle Beach, coastal South Carolina area, you guys have seen a little bit of everything over the past couple of days between snow maps predicting crazy amounts, 10, 20 inches in parts of coastal South Carolina, coastal North Carolina. Talk a little bit about why we need to be very careful with some of those snow maps, and then the ensemble forecast, how those can help us kind of refine which ones may be better versus ones that aren't.
Well, Ricky, I think we just have to rely on kind of the history here, and storms that tend to come in like this without any cold air in advance of the storm, we're just not going to get anything on the front end of it. So we're going to have all liquid on the front end of this storm. And then on the backside, the cold air is going to be playing catch up the whole time. But what a lot of the models I think have a hard time with is that cold air is coming in from the northwest. It's not dammed in from the northeast where it's already in place. So it's got to come over the mountains. And by the time it gets here, I just see no way whatsoever that we're going to have any moisture left in the atmosphere. I really just, I don't see it, especially with the latest model runs. There's absolutely there's no cold air in the northeast. That's when we typically get our frozen precipitation here along the coast. And there just absolutely is no cold air up there. And by the time that cold air comes in on the backside of the system, everything's gone. So I don't know if that's what you're seeing as well, but I mean, every model now has us as all rain. So I see no way. Maybe a quick flurry with that Arctic front coming through, but by that time the whole storm's offshore.
And you were mentioning us before the show, your water temperatures are still relatively warm down in coastal South Carolina. How much does that play into it?
Oh, that plays into it big time, especially when you're looking at a southwesterly flow. It'll be parallel to the coast, so you're going to have a component of that water temperature coming into the air temperature as well. Our water temperature right now in Charleston, 57, 58 degrees, which is ridiculously warm for this time of the year. And I told you earlier, I was actually out fishing this morning, and I fished with shrimp. And this time of the year, you don't typically fish with shrimp because they're all out in the deeper water where they're not going to freeze to death. But today I was pulling shrimp or trout out with shrimp. It's just ridiculous how warm the water is here. So I really don't see it. Maybe, and what really baffles me is some of the outlets around here. I'm not gonna call anybody out, but they're calling for freezing rain with this, and I'm just thinking, where are we going to get that cold air down here at the surface for the freezing rain? The only cold air I see at all is on the backside of the system. So I see the possibility of almost like a quick squall coming through right as that Arctic front pushes through. Other than that, I just don't see the column of air cold enough at all to give us any frozen precip.
Good point.
Speaking of which, Brad, I've got Dave. We've got the SST sea surface temperatures up. I don't know if you can see this or not, but is it? Everybody, you got it? Okay. So yeah, you have your Gulf Stream out here is about 80 degrees. Your Hatteras, Florida slope sitting right about 60 to 63 or 63 to 65 degrees, and then the coastal shelf waters actually went up a degree from yesterday, from 57.3 to 58.3. So waters are actually warmer, a little bit warmer than they should be. So yeah, I mean, when you get that counterclockwise motion and you get that warm air wrapping into the coastline, yeah, it's gonna have a pretty tough battle to get that cool air in time down by the coast.
I think we may have Gary back. Let's see if we can bring him in. Gary, are you there with us?
All right. Do I sound like Alvin?
We
All
are
right.
better now. You got to go back and listen to how you sounded before, because it was pretty hysterical. But
Really quick. My backup was this.
it's like when you're running, you got to start breaking out the color pencils and everything, right?
I have done that before at LOS before. When we lost power at the studio, I have done that. But getting back 10 minutes ago before Alvin and the gang left, a little bit more confidence that we may be in the sweet spot here in central North Carolina, up into northeastern North Carolina, now that the GFS has started trending back more over us with its snowfall. I mean, the latest run of the GFS has still got a pretty good slug of snow across the coastal plain, but I truly believe that we may end up with a general 4 to 8 inch snowfall across central North Carolina up into northeastern North Carolina. I'm not ready to get on TV and talk about that yet, but a lot of times with these systems as well, northeastern North Carolina gets plastered, and I was noticing some of the model runs up in parts of Elizabeth City, Hosky and whatnot, that they could be looking at anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snowfall when this is all said and done. But it's like you guys were mentioning earlier. Number one, the storm hasn't even developed yet. Number two, where is it going to go? I mean, my personal opinion is I really hope it goes off the coast and we see sunshine and 70s on Saturday, but we know that ain't going to happen. But, do we see a little bit more of a shift off the coast and the sand hills and the coastal plain, the Wilmington market, the Morehead City market get hit? Or do we see that trend where the low is closer to the coast and we get all that snow across from northeastern North Carolina down across the Triangle area and the northern sandhills? And one of the other things that's really concerning about this is the cold weather that's coming in. The colder air temperatures are coming in with it, because if we get a decent snowpack on the ground, and I don't know if anybody got into this before I got on, we could see some very, very, very cold temperatures across North Carolina. Not necessarily Sunday morning. It's going to be cold Sunday morning, but by Monday morning, it's possible we could see some single digits across the region. And whatever falls, it's going to stick around into probably the middle of next week, and travel is going to be tricky up to that point as well.
Yeah, we hadn't really hit on that yet, but that was one point I wanted to make later in the show, but you brought it up now, so let's go ahead and bring it in. I mean, from a impact standpoint, that's something that, while the roads may be okay, you could have the potential for sub-freezing wind chills and wind chill values that are dangerous, in addition to air temperatures that are dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, anybody trapped, like they're traveling and they get trapped in this, you're right. With the cold weather, with icy roads, and we were talking to the Weather Center today. Even if we get just a couple of inches of snow and we don't get brutally cold temperatures, we're still going into the teens, and we're still going to have refreeze issues into Monday, maybe Tuesday morning of next week. If we do get a wide swath of 4 to 8 inches across parts of the area, we could be dealing with this as far as road hazards until maybe even Wednesday morning before we finally see temperatures go well above freezing and thaw us out a bit. So yeah, this could actually be kind of a 1-2 punch with the snow coming in on Saturday, and then that colder air really entrenching itself over the area. So we stay cold on Sunday into Monday and really start seeing the air mass modify a little bit more as we go to the middle of the week.
Let's talk about the accumulation with here, because this is, for many parts of North Carolina, going to be a Saturday event as opposed to a Saturday night or a Friday night kind of event. We've talked about, or we've heard some discussions about, snow accumulates differently during the day than it does at nighttime sometimes because of colder temperatures, sun angle, stuff like that. Is that something we need to factor in here? And in addition, do we need to factor in road temperatures and ground temperatures before the snow starts falling?
Well, I think road temperatures, certainly. I mean, the good news is, most of the area in the 60s today. Even tomorrow with temperatures in the 40s, we're still going to get some solar radiation down on those roads. By Friday, that's going to be cut down dramatically. So, it really, I also noticed today that the DOT started brining around midday today. So they're taking this thing seriously across the state right now. So, yeah, I really think, as far as ground temperatures go, initially we're probably in pretty good shape when it comes to roads. But as we continue to see the snowfall, especially if it falls fast and furious, then that's going to easily overcome any thermal protection that we've got, especially on bridges, overpasses, and then we start slipping and sliding everywhere. As far as the difference between the snowfall rates during the night Friday into Saturday, I personally don't think it's going to, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference because, like you said, the majority of the snow is probably going to come once we get probably toward early Saturday morning and then into mid-afternoon on Saturday. Again, just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I looked at ground temperatures and they're in the mid to upper 40s, even here in the mountains. I got Burnsville soil temperature 4-inch depth at 45 degrees. Forest City in Rutherford County is 51 degrees soil temp. It's pretty high, so we will certainly melt some of this off initially. And the timing for us here in the mountains might be a little earlier in the day on Friday. So while the sun is still up, we might have some of that snow still initiating in terms of falling.
So
I think Ricky jumped off. Yeah, I think Ricky jumped off. So we were talking about the cold temperatures, and Jason, with not only with the snow coming in, but we're looking at possibly some locations in the mountains being in the single digits Sunday into Monday. Talk about that and how you guys at WLOS are factoring that into your forecast.
Well, it's certainly going to be something, like you said, afterwards. Gary mentioned we'll be dealing with snowfall on the ground likely for days afterward because of the cold air that's coming in behind the system, the Arctic chill. And so we too in the mountains will have the thaw freeze cycle going on, and that certainly will create the black ice. And the wind chills, yeah, I've seen wind chills forecast to get well below zero, especially in the mountains higher up above 3,500 feet as we get into Saturday and Sunday. And so, that's going to be certainly something that people will have to take seriously, and we always emphasize that. They issue a cold purple in Asheville anytime the temperature drops below 30 degrees, so that the folks that are outside, the homeless and such, they can get some shelter. They're urged to come indoors. So we really urge that. We urge that everybody brings their pets in, and certainly with the potential for pipe freezing. So that will be something I mentioned too. Hey, prepare by opening up the cupboards and the cabinet doors and letting that air circulate, and maybe dripping the faucets a couple nights here, Saturday and Sunday night, even Monday night too, as temperatures will be very, very cold.
And Brad, this is a setup where normally we see snow in the mountains and the foothills be greater than maybe the Charlotte area and on east. But with this setup, we could see less snowfall in the western part of the state, say Hickory, Morganton, Statesville, places like that. Talk about the why we may see less snow there and more snow out east. Oh, I think Brad. There he goes.
Hey, you guys hear me?
Oh, I think he may be.
Let's see.
Let's see. All right. We'll
Hello?
okay.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
We got you now, Brad. You sound good.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Yeah, I had some internet issues there for a second.
Seems a second has returned.
I'm like,
I think he needs Time Warner Cable.
Yeah, we'll get to.
now we're breaking up.
All right, you sound good now, so I think we've got it fixed.
Okay. Yeah, that was weird.
At
I
least
was
you
like
didn't.
losing all my. Didn't sound like Gary there for a while.
At least you didn't sound like a chipmunk. So, but talking about the potential, we may see less snow in the western part of the state opposed to Charlotte on east. Oh, I think he's froze again. All right. Well, let's.
Scott, if you don't mind, I'll jump in real fast.
Go ahead, Gary.
You know, a lot of people around here compare, or automatically people reflect back to the last big storm.
It's fun.
A lot of people are talking about the January 2000 storm
Some
here, whereas Central and Eastern North Carolina got hammered by over a foot of snow in a lot of locations. I was living in Asheville at the time, and we got nothing up there. So again, it's all about the placement of that low, and with the track that this low is taking just off the coast. Not that much moisture may get kicked back toward the mountains and the foothills to give that much snow compared to what we're going to see across Central and Eastern North Carolina. You probably need the low just a little bit farther inland to actually throw that moisture back into Western North Carolina, kind of like the superstorm in 1993, to give more snow across the western part of the state. But yeah, with this setup, it really looks like we may see the potential for Central and Eastern North Carolina to see more snow than the mountains and parts of the foothills.
Absolutely.
Well, Scotty, it seems like your audio has cut out yet again, but I think it came in that it was talking about does this storm have any analog, or does it remind you of any storm that's happened in the past? One thing I saw earlier in the models was showing a little bit of a similarity to the 2014 storm. What are y'all's opinions on that? I could start with Jason on that.
You're talking about the January 2014 storm?
I was thinking a little more of February 2014, but it's whatever you've seen similar. Go ahead and talk about.
Well, the last big snow, I mean, this one's not as a comparison or analog to it because we had last year in January 22nd, we had over 13 inches of snow. That was an entirely different setup, obviously. Anytime you get a system like this that's farther to the south, as Gary mentioned, these are very hard forecasts for the mountains. Any given snowstorm is a hard forecast for the mountains, obviously, because of elevation, topography, and such. But when you get something like this is similar to something like that storm in February, where you're going to have places that just east of here, the I-77 corridor, and east could have several more inches of snow, whereas here in the mountains, people are hoping to wake up to something, and it may very well be nothing on the ground in some of the higher elevations, even north.
And can I chime in on that too? That February 2014 storm, that also had the cold air in place out ahead of it. There's just absolutely no cold air east of the Appalachians right now. And that's the big problem I have with a lot of these accumulations. It's taking into account what's ahead of the storm and not really the moisture being thrown back into the cold air. So I think by the time the cold air gets to a lot of these spots, especially up in the mountains and say Greenville, Spartanburg, on up toward Asheville, you're going to be talking about the moisture long gone, and that cold air is just starting to crest the mountains about that time.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. I'm sorry. I had a question. I don't know whoever wants to jump this. My computer is really being weird tonight for some reason. Question about the jet streak and how it may affect Western North Carolina totals. Brad, I may give that to you and Jason to talk about since that's your coverage area.
You're talking about the jet stream or the jet streak?
The jet streak.
Okay. Well, obviously, when you have some kind of diffluence aloft caused by the jet streak, you can get enhancement of snowfall. I just don't see that kind of being the setup here. I mean, the actual short wave associated with the vorticity maximum that's going to come through is, it's not that impressive until it gets a little farther to the east and starts to help energize the system along the coast. So I'm really not thinking that's going to help enhance the snowfall totals at this point, but it's something that I discussed with a fellow meteorologist earlier today, looking at that and saying, the surface low position obviously is not helping us get a significant snowfall amount going, but what about this upper level piece of energy? Could it be enough to put us in a position? But if anything, there might be some enhancement farther to the west and south, the southern mountains, but I don't see a lot of enhancement happening here in Asheville and most places across the mountains.
Okay. Ricky, I'm having issues, so you may want to.
All right. Give me a brief little overview. My news director, my boss called, so I had to answer his call real quick, as all the TV guys know in here. Have we handled both the viewer questions and stuff, or have any other ones come in?
We did get the previous storm analog question addressed. I wasn't sure if there was another question in here.
Craig had a question. We get that one, Scotty?
Yes. Let me scroll down to it right quick.
I got it here if you just want me to do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. This is for anyone, and you guys can jump in here, but Craig was asking about how you guys have been handling the specific questions that come up, that come up every single time we get a storm in the long term. We started hearing about this, oh gosh, for some parts of our area back in December. And it feels like we've been fielding questions about it now for about a week to 10 days. Gary, how have you been dealing with that in your area?
The biggest thing is the frustration level that you get when somebody posts that GFS from a couple of days ago that has 2 feet of snow in Raleigh, because everybody gravitates by that and they're wondering why we're not talking about it. I think a lot of people are finally understanding that meteorology is not an exact science, and especially with winter weather in North Carolina. I think with this system, because it has been kind of prevalent in the computer models kind of off and on since, like you said, last week, people have been made aware of it. And the viewers that have contacted me have been satisfied with me saying, hey, we got computer models going all over the place with this system, and there is no way I can give you an exact answer that is going to be right. And most people are fairly educated to the point where they understand that. And even tonight, when I did a post on Facebook where I said, hey, listen, this is what all the models are saying right now. We're going to get snow. The question is, where's it going to set up? How much? And most of the, I didn't get any questions of how much am I going to get in Greensboro or how much am I going to get in Fayetteville. The questions more were like, what time do you think it's going to start? How long do you think it's going to last? Is it going to be all snow? Are we going to see snow and sleet? Very educated questions. And people were appeased very easily by some of the answers, and I was actually very pleased with that. So I've been very happy by the way the viewers have handled this. Most of them just want a ton of snow on Saturday.
I think that's an important point. It's coming on Saturday, and so for most people, the impacts are going to be lower, which is a blessing almost in disguise here when we're talking about snow. It's not coming on a Monday or a middle of the week kind of deal and stuff like that, and kids may get 2 snow days without having to make them up in the coming months after. So,
Ricky, I've got a few more of the viewer questions. Didn't mean to step in on you. Dave, this one's for you. Talking about not only the Charleston area, but maybe up towards Myrtle Beach, Wilmington. I know that's technically not in your area, but do you see any impacts further up the coast, maybe in the Myrtle Beach, Wilmington area as we see the storm develop?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I've been watching pretty closely. I think even the northwestern parts of our viewing area, up into Williamsburg County, it's pretty rural up there, but you're talking about places like Kingstree. And then as you head up toward Florence, over toward Marion, that's probably going to be the cutoff line between the mix of precipitation and the snow. I think we're going to see some snow up toward Florence, Marion, and that'll continue up toward Lumberton. places like Rockingham. I think they're going to see some significant snow. But then on the coast, yeah, I think we're going to be talking about maybe a mixed line, probably right about Georgetown, and then that'll continue up toward Myrtle Beach, the Grand Strand. Wilmington's going to be right on that edge line too. I think, but they're going to deal with a lot of the same circumstances we have down here in Charleston with the warm water temperature. Plus, they jut out a little bit farther there, so they're going to get a little bit more Gulf Stream influence. So their water will be a little bit warmer, and that'll help to increase the air temperature too. So, but I certainly think that Myrtle Beach could see a mix of precipitation, definitely in Wilmington, and then the farther you head inland back toward Conway and places like that, maybe a little light dusting of snow there, but I think it's going to be right along I-95 in this part of South Carolina where you're going to see that real dividing line. I think east of I-95, pretty much all liquid.
Dave, that kind of leads me into, I had someone ask me a question. They asked, what about Bono, which is on Lake Moultrie, southern Lake Moultrie? And that got me thinking about some of the lake effect snow potential. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you have Lake Murray and Lake Moultrie. Lake Murray specifically would probably have, with strong northerly winds diving down across the state. That's always a potential there. What do you think?
Yeah, and if we've got those strong northerly winds, I think less of a chance. I think if you're coming across the entire fetch of Lake Marion and Lake Moultrie, more of a northwesterly flow, then you could start to get some lake effect up toward Monk's Corner and north up toward St. Stephen and Bono. But with a due north wind, I really don't see a whole lot of lake effect potential there. I just don't think there's enough of a fetch to pick up enough moisture into that system.
Jason,
go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna say we had a question from Jamie. Jason, I'll let this come to you since it's your area. Any thoughts on how much moisture dynamics for snow will be available in Northeast Georgia or the upstate of South Carolina?
Yeah, it looks like the moisture might be limited there because as the low really develops and tries to bring in some of that moisture, it might just be too far east to provide enough for those locations in Northeast Georgia. So I'm not confident about going much more than maybe an inch or two for those places. But at this point, if that low develops a little faster and it's a little farther west, those locations, that may help draw some of the moisture back up from the Gulf into those locations in Northeast Georgia. It might put down some higher totals than that. But the idea
I think we've lost him.
You lose me?
Has already got one of us.
Gremlins.
I know.
Seems to happen when we start filling up the entire board. Get audios.
And plus, when we're trying to work on our
check
on internet, it works sometimes.
Yeah.
You didn't. Okay, you guys are good.
2 o'clock Friday to 2 a.m.
All right. Well, Gary, I'm going to direct this question to you. We're starting finally to get some questions come in. A lot of them, in fact. Tim Buckley was supposed to be on from WFMY in Greensboro, but he's doing some stuff for the news right now. Talk about the effects maybe in the Triad area towards Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Wilkesboro, places like that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
We can't see it.
Let's see it.
Yeah, what's the high enough?
How's that? There you go.
Lift it up. It's going to snow.
Gone.
But you got to do it like the guy off Family Guy. Gonna snow. And I'd like to point out that Shea is still braving out Charleston. He's not evacuated yet.
We came so close, Gary. We're almost there. If we're gonna have it, we'll leave, man. We'll get all the bread and milk off the shelves, and we'll haul tail out of here.
I don't know the way the models are going. I may come down to Charleston. But yeah, actually, it's funny because we may see a setup where the moisture may not make it up into the Triad. I mean, definitely the Triad is going to get some snow. But, typically in North Carolina, the Triad kind of is one of the predominant spots to have snow during a winter event. But the way this low is actually forming and potentially tracking according to a lot of the models, then we may be looking at maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3-inch range of snow over parts of the triad. It's all going to depend on where that heavier band of snow sets up, which, like I said, a lot of the models are actually trying to put it from the triangle area up into northeastern North Carolina. So the triad may run headlong into the same situation that Charlotte and Asheville and the mountains may be, that there just may not be enough moisture that makes it up in there to give a significant weather event. But having said that, 1 to 2 inches of snow can be a significant weather event if you're the one that goes sliding off the road. But, in the grand scheme of things right now, the triad is not looking like one of the sweet spots for heavier winter precipitation Friday night into Saturday.
I'll jump in here if you want, real quick with a question. Kind of for the panel as a whole, how much are you guys concerned about dry air being an impact as we first start off this system? Gary gave me a shoulder shrug. So
I think we're going to saturate fairly fast. If this low should really start shoving the moisture in, I think we're going to see some, evaporation initially. But I honestly believe in the Raleigh area itself, I think by mid-evening we'll start seeing accumulation. Well, maybe not accumulation, but we'll see precipitation hitting the ground.
Yeah, obviously with elevation here in Western North Carolina, it's a little less of a factor. Elevation is 2,000 plus feet up, and we're probably going to get that snow to come down pretty quickly. The thing about any virga or evaporation would mean that, we're going to cool the air a little bit more. So that might set the stage for, I guess, more rapid accumulation in some places. But then again, you really need a good, precipitation rate to do that. And really, I don't see the snows being more than moderate snow showers, here in the mountains.
All righty. I think we have a viewer question. Is that what you're getting at, Kit, there?
Well, James, one of our panelists, he put a question up in the chat for the YouTube broadcast, just asking how people are going to be spending their weekend if they're trapped at home. Some people are saying Xbox, Netflix marathons. One person added that she was going to spend it sideways, but as meteorologists, whenever you have snow events like this, what are your plans for if you get snowed in?
I'm going to work.
There you go.
Let's see. I'm going to hope that my news director brings me some cookies. And actually, they're very good at bringing us food. So we will have some food at my station. But we're going to be eating and probably watching radar.
Yeah, let me just say here in Charleston, it's restaurant week, and I haven't canceled my restaurant plans on Saturday night.
You're not still doing dinner on Dave, though, are you?
Yeah. No, dinner on Dave's done. They decided that costs too much money.
Well, I'm glad I got in on the last one or two.
Yeah, Shay, you got in.
We can walk to the restaurants where our station is here in Biltmore Park. So the worst case scenario, we can actually just walk to a restaurant, I guess.
That's awesome. I didn't know you.
Hopefully they're open.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they're open, half the time it's the pizza places and the Bojangles around here that are open. But hey, Bojangles is good eating when it comes to a snowstorm. Let's get real. All right, so we're getting close to 9:40, and I know many of you have to jump off here. So let's get a bottom line from all of you guys. Let's start with Dave first, who may have the shortest bottom line out of all of us. Dave, what's it going to do in your market?
It's going to rain here. There's no cold air ahead of the system, so by the time the cold air gets here, moisture is going to transition completely from the Gulf to the Atlantic, and we'll be far south of it. So it's just going to be a cold rain here as we go from Friday evening on into Saturday during the day. I do still see the possibility of a quick snow shower, snow flurry with the Arctic front coming through, but by that time, it's not going to do anything. And like everybody else said, I know Gary said, with those changing temperatures, all the rain that we're going to get here, then I'm going to become concerned. We've got a lot of big bridges, tall bridges. If we get a decent amount of rain, we're going to have a lot of black ice here as we go into Sunday morning. So that's really my biggest concern is the black ice and the Arctic cold on the backside of the system.
All right, very cool. David Reese, let's bring you in here for your market up in Virginia. What are you expecting?
Yeah, we're up here in Charlottesville, Virginia, so we're a little bit more north. Ricky will probably see a little bit more in the way of snow tomorrow night through Friday morning. here locally in Central Virginia, Charlottesville area, we're looking at a trace to maybe an inch. So first accumulating snow is possible Thursday night, Friday morning, and then Friday night, Saturday morning, I think we'll be just far enough away that we'll avoid any significant accumulations here. I think that'll be more to the south and east towards Richmond, Norfolk, Hampton Roads area, and areas down in southeastern Virginia. Here locally, I think we could see maybe a couple of flurries out there, maybe a coating in our southeastern counties down near Lake Monticello and Louisa, in Bumpus, where they had the earthquake several years ago. So that's what we're looking at here in Central Virginia over the next couple of nights.
Alrighty. And I'll just jump in here with my little bottom line from my area. We're going to be dealing with snow as we go into tomorrow night and Friday. This is for Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. Our highest accumulations for tomorrow night are expected across the Cumberland Plateau into Southwest Virginia, where we predict anywhere from about 1 to 3 inches, locally 4 in some of those higher locations that are favored for snow. For the Tri-Cities metro area, we're currently thinking about 1 inch or so or less in spots. If the snow becomes kind of spotty in its nature as it moves into our region, there may be some areas that don't see a whole lot of snow and other areas that get a little bit more than, just your neighbor down the street. But one thing we'll be watching as we go through tomorrow is how the band sets up across portions of Kentucky, whether it's kind of overperforming, whether it's dropping more snow than expected, because as Brad mentioned, and as some others have mentioned, sometimes with these jet streaks and some of this moisture moving in, they can overperform a little bit. So we'll watch that closely. And, I got to say, I don't think anyone's ever complained when you get more snow versus when you get less snow. So it's always somewhat nice when you get more snow. But let's bring in Gary, and then we'll jump to Jason. And we have a viewer question to go along with Jason as well. Gary, let's bring you in here for your area in the Raleigh market. What are you expecting?
Well, like I said, to begin with, it's going to snow. The big concern is that the models are kind of hinting that we are going to be in the sweet spot from the triangle up into northeastern North Carolina. Right now, I think we're going real conservative with a 2 to 4 inch range. I think by tomorrow, we may be pushing that to 3 to 6 inches. When all is said and done, I think there's a good possibility that we could see a generous 4 to 8 inch swath with higher totals, say from northern Sandhills Triangle area up into the northeastern part of the state, and then lesser amounts as you drop toward the southeastern part of North Carolina. We've talked about it all this chat, this hangout. It's all going to depend on exactly where that low pressure area sets up, how strong it is, exactly where it goes. If it's a little bit farther off the coast, that heavy band may end up closer across eastern North Carolina. But everything that I'm looking at right now is saying that we are in the area that's going to get the heaviest snow when all is said and done. And like I said, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to get on TV and say this right now, but I'm not going to be surprised if we don't see a widespread 4 to 8 inch snowfall before all is said and done with this system. And I can't emphasize enough to anybody who's in North Carolina right now, especially from Charlotte all the way to the coast. Now's the time to be ready. Keep in mind that if when it does snow, whatever it does is going to stick around for a while because it's going to get really, really cold going into the first part of next week. So travel is going to be impeded for a while. So, be prepared to stay home for several days. Make sure you got the food, make sure you've got water and your medicines and anything necessary to kind of hang out at home for a few days and just enjoy the weather. But just be ready because right now it looks like we're going to get a decent snowstorm in North Carolina coming up this weekend.
A nice weekend at home, perhaps. Jason, let's bring you in here. We had a viewer question that kind of went along with your area as well, talking about could the mountains enhance orographic lift for the eastern-facing slopes and foothill areas? Comment on that, if you will, and also give us the bottom line for your area. And
the orographic effects. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Am I on?
We got you.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying I was muted or something. The orographic effect here, the east-facing slopes, I think will be minimal because it's mostly going to be a northeasterly wind. A southeasterly wind might have been a better setup for that. I don't see a ton of orographic effects for those areas in terms of where the low is positioned and how it moves. Northeasterly winds also usually mean that we're going to limit some of that moisture getting farther north here into Asheville or northern mountains. So that too leads me to believe that the impacts farther north will be much less compared to areas farther south and east. When it comes to the storm as itself, I think it's going to be overall what we consider low impact here in Western North Carolina, considering we've seen much bigger snows. And anything is significant, and it's all relative, because if you live on that hill or that mountainside, and I've seen the driveways, even in my neighborhood, they're 45-degree angles or greater, and I just don't, we're going to have our issues, obviously, with slipping and sliding no matter what, any kind of snow accumulation. But in terms of the totals, I'm really thinking 1 to 3 will cover the majority of the area. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some places that actually end up with less than an inch farther to the north, maybe the northern end of Burke County, and some places up into the southern end of Mitchell County and Yancey County, our northern mountain communities. But certainly the southern mountains and foothills have the better chance of getting some more of the significant accumulations, maybe pushing more than 3 or 4 inches in some spots. But all in all, expecting it to come in Friday and get out of here very early Saturday, probably before daybreak in some cases. It's already shut off. And then we worry about a little bit of that west-northwest flow snow that we might get. Northwest flow may get a little more mountain snows along the Tennessee border very early Saturday and Saturday afternoon. But I don't see a ton of accumulation with that. But those are always tricky things to nail down as well. And they can be surprising, too, when you get that strong northwest wind and continues to drop some of that northwest flow snow. So we'll watch it. But all in all, thinking it's going to get out of here pretty quickly.
Those are some of the coolest events because we end up with so much rime ice on our higher elevations and stuff. You go up there and it's like a winter wonderland all around you in the trees. So
it's gorgeous.
I think we have 2 new members. So we were trying to get Jim on here for a while, and I think we've got him in now. Jim, can you hear us? And
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We have you perfectly. All right.
Great.
Well, you're in the Columbia, South Carolina market, where you guys are almost on that borderline, I guess, between rain, snow, and some type of interesting winter weather. Tell us a little bit about what you're expecting for your area.
Well, I probably can show you more than I can tell you. So let me.
Well, this is the best part about having Jim. He has great graphics to go with it.
I come prepared. So let me see if I can get this up here and get this so that you can see what's going on. I'll put it on my stand here because I've been doing all kinds of things. Here we go. It's almost there. All right. There we go. All right. Basically, this is the latest RPM. And it's pretty close to what I'm thinking. I'll refine this tomorrow. But basically, from Orangeburg, Columbia, we're going to be seeing a wintry mix during the early morning hours of Saturday. And that'll extend up to the Florence area. North of us, it's going to be changing over to some snow. And it looks like it's going to be moving out of here around midday. Could be late morning, could be early afternoon. But we think that the RPM may have the right idea. For the Columbia area, probably about a ½ inch, maybe up to an inch. However, to our north, that's where we're going to see the greater amounts of snow. And it really depends on how fast the cool air can get in here. But from past experience, it's not unusual for Newberry and Winnsboro to see 2 to 3 inches of snow, and we only get about a ½ inch of snow. And that's the kind of scenario I pretty much think we'll see this time.
All right. What's your thoughts on potential impacts from your area? I mean, with snow totals perhaps being on the lighter side, y'all could also see the potential for some sleet and some ice mixing in. Is that going to be a big factor into your overall impacts?
No, I don't think so. And here's the reason why. Yesterday we were 72. Our soil temperature is at 50 degrees. It's not going to get below freezing before it changes over to either a wintry mix or snow. And so whatever falls Saturday morning is going to be melting Saturday afternoon. It's not until you get up to the higher amounts where it may not melt all Saturday afternoon. Then you might see some icing on the road that night. But other than that, I think for the most part here in the Midlands, it's not going to be that bad.
All right. Very
Jim,
cool.
there's a viewer question. And
Don't all jump at once, guys.
Jamie Mitchum asked a question earlier, and he asked how much moisture or dynamics for snow in northeast Georgia and upstate South Carolina, not just the Midlands. But what do you think about the upstates of both Georgia and South Carolina? I mean, you already mentioned South Carolina.
I think that the upstate definitely will see more snow than anything else. But it's always a matter of timing with these things. And one of the things, and I don't know if y'all have been talking about it because I haven't been able to hear it all the time. But one of the things that got me was the GFS has just been over the hill as far as over the top as far as snow mass. I mean, it varies from run to run. It has varied. The GFS has been forecasting anywhere from 3 to 9 inches of snow for Columbia. Give me a break. You're not going to see that with a positively tilted trough. We just don't have the dynamics in place to produce a lot of snow. So this is more of the scenario for us where we have the moisture. It's going to be coming in Friday. We just don't have the cold air. And the cold air may not get here fast enough to really do that much damage to us. So whatever we get is going to be at the tail end of the rain event.
I want to ask a funny question since we are being serious right now, but I do want to bring a little humor to the element. So, Jim, today around 3 o'clock, maybe 3:30, there was an outlier post come out from the Columbia office. How much panic did that ensue in the Midlands once that came out?
I don't know how many people have seen that. No one in our building has seen that, but me. And when I looked at it, I mean, it's a possibility. But here's the thing. I'm not going as cold as they are. And I've really been looking at the upper levels. And, a good question was asked of me by our staff, and that is, well, how do you know if what the computer is telling you is correct? And that's something we always have to grapple with every time we go into any kind of weather situation. How do I know the computer is telling me the truth? Now, I know how I dissect the computer model. I mean, first of all, I know its limitations. And before I ever use a computer model, I try to truth it. And the way I do that is I compare the 6-hour forecast with reality. If it doesn't stand up to the current analysis, then I don't give it much weight. And that's been the problem with the GFS. If you take a close look at the GFS, vertically, it doesn't stack up. The Europeans a little better. It might be a little slow on some of the cool air, but my experience here in central South Carolina is the cold air's got to go around the mountains. And it's going to be coming around from the west and coming around from the north. And it just takes a while to get here. And so there's a very good chance. We're going to see a wintry mix, and we're going to see some snow, but it's going to be a tail.
This is one of the things I love about our field. At the end of the day, we all have slightly different ideas. We all have slightly different, forecasting techniques. And I guess in the end, some of us are right, some of us are wrong, some of us are close, and that's just how the ball falls. So,
well, I mean, it's not the final word, because obviously we're talking Saturday. Here it is Wednesday, and obviously we're going to refine whatever we would put out there over the next day or two.
Sure. Great point. All right, Jim, we appreciate your time. If you want to hang out with us, feel free. We're going to bring in Tim here from...
I've got to go. I've got to run.
All right. I totally understand.
Take care.
Thanks, Jim.
Tim, we're going to bring you in. Tim is
hey guys.
WFMY up in the Greensboro Triad market. You guys have been having a fun, adventurous time up there because some of the models have been kind of bringing the snow closer to you than taking it away. And
right.
You've been on that borderline between the past couple days of model mayhem, as I guess I'll call it.
And every time the model shifts, my
and
Facebook messages just go crazy and the tweets go crazy. Oh, did you see the GFS? Did you see the zero? Yes, we track them too. And they're out there, man. And so we're watching. now that the models have started to trend a little bit farther to the northwest, it looks to me like we're going to be in for some snow here. Just kind of drawn a prelim snow map for our area right now. I kind of have the triad sandwiched in between a bit of a gradient. I think for Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point, you're probably looking somewhere in between the 2 to 3 inch range, but farther south and east, totally different ballgame. I could see how Burlington maybe gets 4 to 5. Asheboro could get 4 to 5 to 6. Raleigh could get, more. I'm glad I don't have to worry about Raleigh. But the foothills, they're going to get, maybe not as much. It depends to me whether or not that sharp cutoff in the moisture that I think will happen. I think there will be kind of a back edge of that moisture. Does it get all the way to the mountains, or does it stop maybe in Yadkin County or something like that, or even in Winston-Salem? The trend now looks to be a little bit more north and west, and that would be better for snow for us, but I've kind of been anticipating that trend all along. I've thought that GFS has been garbage the last couple of days with Wilmington getting. I still can't see Wilmington getting anything, at least in my opinion. But I think that north and west trend makes some sense, and I think we're going to get some snow here.
Well, Tim, you're not short of any personnel to give you any feedback. You guys have quite an army of weather spotters up there. So
we do.
I can only imagine when you see every model run that comes out, you probably get bombarded by your whole team of weather spotters. Wow.
People are snow hungry, man. They really want that snow, and especially I think the first snow of the year when you haven't seen it for. Gosh, I don't know when our last event was last year. Maybe it was in February. It's a long time. You want to see that snow again, and so people are really looking forward to it.
Says the man who doesn't like snow.
Yeah, I don't like snow. I mostly don't like it because I'm here all the time. But yeah, we're going to get through it. I think it'll be an interesting system to watch evolve. I feel okay where we are right now. I think the models are starting to come into some agreement. We'll see if there is a deformation band or something that sets up with some big totals. But I think if that happens, probably a little bit out of my area, maybe out toward north of Raleigh or something.
Tim, we were talking earlier amongst the panel about previous storms, and if this reminded them of any storms. Anything that comes to mind for you?
Gosh, there's not one that I could say it's completely like. I think this is maybe a little interesting to me. It looks like the track is maybe a little less than classic with this one. It's not like it's really completely off the coast and a big strong low and here's your rain, here's your mix, here's your this and that. I think this one is a little different in the sense that your high is way off to the west, which is maybe not ideal. It's not up in New England or anything. But I kind of like the idea that maybe it is more of just a rain snow event rather than a ton of mixing. So for me, I'm kind of a short timer down in these parts. I don't have a strong memory for these storms, but to me, I don't have one that really rings a bell with this system.
I think that's the remarkable thing about this system, at least to a certain degree. For many of us, we're not dealing with P-type issues, which is always a rare thing in the Charlotte area, the Triad area. Oh gosh, across the entire state, it seems like.
Until it starts sleeting at 2 a.m. on Saturday.
Yeah. Hush. We won't get into that. All right.
Well, Tim, I know
we're getting close to 10 o'clock, Scotty. So what do you want to do here?
Yeah. Well, Tim, I know we were talking a little bit about it. You want to kind of give your snowfall map, maybe your idea right now of what you guys are starting off with there before we head off with snowfall relations and the Triad.
Let me try and pull a Jim Gandy and see if this is elegant or not. Can you see?
Yes.
I got you. Yeah.
Is it backwards?
Ooh, feathered polygons.
Feathered polygons. That's my way around the hard edges.
Yeah.
So as of right now, I'm thinking maybe up to 2 inches for our northernmost counties, north and west. Triad area itself, maybe 1 to 3, 3 to 6 in a narrow band somewhere from your central North Carolinas of the world. So for us, that would be Burlington, Asheboro, Montgomery County, and then farther north and east. That's kind of a starting block for me. I could see that switching, of course. I've been avoiding drawing a snow map, but we're 48 hours out, so we got to start drawing those maps. And I think that's a decent starting block for us. I don't see it going down, but I'm still worried about that moisture a little bit.
And right now is a good time that you and I both can throw Grant Gilmore under the bus for not being around to cover the snow event.
Yeah, man, he's still up north after some holiday time. Yeah, he'll be back by Friday.
That's okay. We'll throw him under the bus right now.
There you go. I can just blame Grant.
he blames you. He blames you when you're not around.
Oh, we'll see. I didn't even know that.
You didn't hear that from me.
Shots fired at WFNY's Weather Center. Tim, do you still have to go outside and report outside of the weather garden when it's snowing?
Yeah, man, they love that because we get to make snowballs, and it's actually you think about it for those of us in the TV business, we're spread thin when we have these weather events, so it almost acts like a bit of a Greensboro live shot for us. We can just stand out there and keep on measuring it as it comes, and we oftentimes when it's kind of dying down, we'll throw snowballs at each other and be delirious if we've gone on for too long.
And if not, you have snow in a can there still, right?
Yeah, I don't know if we might have exhausted it, but yeah, if we bust, I'll have to buy a lot of those cans.
I'm waiting for most meteorologists in North Carolina, though, for the TV station to set up a live stream with a ruler outside in their parking lot and just watch the snow accumulate. Just like that Eagle cam. It'll take off, I'll tell you what.
Oh, my Lord. That's true. That's a good idea.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, buddy.
Before you head off, why don't you give us our final accumulations for Asheville area, foothills, and maybe even the upstate?
All right, I'll swing this around here. I do a little different map.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing the Jim Gandy tonight.
I'm going to have to do it this way. This is going to be tricky for me. You see that?
Move it up to
right there. We got it now.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's a trace to 3 inches. That'll cover everybody pretty much here in the mountains. I'm going to go a little more, 2 to 4 inches up here in the Smokies, Swain County, Graham. And then down here, I'm really thinking there's going to be some sleet really mixing in here over the upstate, or even a little bit of rain south of 85. So I'm not buying all the heavy accumulations down there just yet. So it'll be interesting to see how the temperatures, I'm really concerned about temperatures down there too. So that's kind of where I stand at this point with total accumulations.
And one other thing, since we've had some viewers jump on, the cold temperatures, especially in your area, it's going to be frigid after this event passes.
Yeah, wind chill sub-zero easily. We've already had a couple, 3 shots of cold. They've come in and they've gone in 36 hours. This one I've been telling everybody, look, you see the numbers. This is not just a couple of days of cold. This is 4 days of really cold temperatures, considering we're going to be in the teens at least 2 nights, if not 3 nights in a row, or single digits, those number of nights too in the higher elevations. The highest elevations, obviously, you really worry about the folks that are exposed more there because of the wind. Wind can be stronger, and the wind chills going below zero always gets us concerned for the folks out there, and frostbite, and make sure you cover all exposed skin. That's usually the first thing we talk about, and getting your pets inside and making sure that if they have to be outside. I know that not every pet can be brought inside. I get that. So people have to really give them straw and blankets and give them fresh water, things like that, to keep them safe. But yeah, the cold is really going to be a problem, because then we're going to get our thaw freeze cycle going too during the afternoon, especially when the sun comes out on Saturday. We'll get some melting, but not much, because air temperatures are going to be so far below freezing. Then we'll get some of the melting just from the insulation, and then we're going back into the freezing overnight, and that will keep those roads pretty icy in the mountains for days.
Jason and Scotty, and my area and your area too, to an extent, we have a lot of people who don't live in metro areas and live out in country areas where their primary heating source is wood, or maybe they don't have a large heating system. And so when we talk about cold like this, to a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, it's cold, no big deal. But to them, it is a big deal.
Yeah. I drive by some of these places, when I go on stories and cover something out in the Haywood County, Yancey County area, and you will see that they have half their yard is firewood. It's amazing. I'm just like, how long did it take him to chop that? Or did somebody have to chop that? Or did somebody do that for you and you hauled it in? That's amazing to me how much they do rely on just wood burning up there too.
Yeah. I think once it's all said and done with, I think that'll probably be the bigger story maybe than the little bit of snow that we get, is just the cold temperatures, especially here in the western part of the state and up in northeast Tennessee, Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, the scary thing is when we talk about impacts, we typically, especially in the bigger snowstorms, usually, unfortunately, hear about 1 or 2 cases of hypothermia all the time. And that's something, that has to be brought into discussion on systems like this, I think, guys. So.
I agree.
All right, Scotty.
All right, well.
All right, guys.
Hey, we're glad we finally got your computer online. That's
yeah, that's been a problem. Yeah, I think it's, I talked to my IT guy and I said, hey, it's a firewall issue, and his eyes got real big, and I said, I'm not touching anything. So I didn't want to miss
about that.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, and if you need, I'm just right over in McDowell County, so if you need anything during the storm, just let us know.
Absolutely, Scotty. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. All right, guys, thanks for watching tonight. Stay safe with whatever snow you do get, and stay warm out there. Stay tuned to our Facebook pages, our Twitter. We'll update throughout the event. You guys have anything to add before we close off?
I don't think so. It's just going to be an interesting, I guess 72 hours to 80, 84 hours. And I hate the fact, with snow. I've been pondering this past couple of days. I hate the fact that it's such a fine and distinct situation to where we have to get within that range. But, when we're talking about snow, we're talking about the difference between 1/10 of an inch versus 2/10 of an inch. And if it rains that, no one gives a crap. They can't care. They don't notice it. But when it snows, that's the difference between 1 inch, 2 inches, perhaps more in spots. So it can.
And like you're talking about, Ricky, when you forecast 1 to 3 inches, everybody gravitates to the 3 inches and kind of doesn't look at the 1 or 2.
That's understandable, but we'll be here next Wednesday, and we'll all be looking back at what was, perhaps. So,
yeah, I think it's actually got a name, doesn't it?
Names with an H.
That's the girlfriend of one of my
Helena. Is it Helena?
Helena, something. I'm calling it Winter Storm Helena because it rhymes with one of my friends' names. So we're gonna go with that.
All right. Well, Shay, we're all coming down south, so we can just stay in the rain.
Don't come here because then Gary will get upset, and because I was supposed to have evacuated long before Matthew.
Again, I'll reiterate. I'm just hoping for enough snow to stay on the ground, at least in Charlotte. So that classes are canceled on Monday. Just hoping.
All right, guys, I got to go to another hangout here for the Foothills Weather Network. So,
alrighty.
Have a good one. Be safe out there, everyone. Enjoy the snow. Send us your pictures. I know Ricky will use them on TV this weekend. Are you working this weekend?
Yep. I'll be in Friday morning and Saturday morning. So if we get some snow Saturday morning, that's my shift. So we'll be talking about that if it comes to fruition. So
if you get it at the Midlands or upstate South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, and you want to share it to the coast, you can send it to me too. Be glad to share.
Yeah. Thanks to Brad Panovich, Jason Boyer, Gary Stevenson. You guys go rag Gary about the chipmunk sound. Tim Buckley, Jim Gandy, Dave Williams, and am I missing anybody?
I think you got them all.
I think that's it. So, yeah, thank those guys for coming. Go follow them on Twitter. And also thanks to Jason for coming on before our show, the Capital Weather Game. So be safe, everyone.